know the drill by now, but hey everyone, it's Sydney and welcome to My Dear Diary. Actually, maybe you don't. Maybe you're new here, which I would love if you're a new listener. But we're just going to get right into it for this week's Heart to Heart self-help episode. We are going to talk about the fear of being seen and how to overcome that. Quick life update, because this is what sparks the entire idea of this episode. I live in New York City, for those of you who don't know that. And if you know anything about New York real estate, you know it's expensive and limited quantities. And so right now I'm on the apartment hunt, and that has caused me such extreme stress. I don't think you understand the roller coaster of emotions I just went through the past day and a half. It's extremely stressful. Lost out an apartment, found a new one. Now considering the price, whatever. It's a whole event, and it has just been mentally taxing. It got me thinking that I don't want to be in this situation ever again. I don't want to be struggling thinking about, am I going to be able to afford it? I don't want to be struggling thinking about like, where am I going to live? I just want to find peace. Probably wondering how this even connects with this topic. There's a through line. And the point is, I feel like I have let my fear of being seen make me miss out on certain opportunities or put myself out there to get certain opportunities. And it's kind of crazy because I never thought I was that person who had a fear of being perceived, at least not at this stage in life. But now that I'm analyzing and further reflecting, there are ways where I feel like I don't want to go against the status quo because I have a fear of how I'm coming across. I don't want to have to hit rock bottom to finally become the person that I want to be. And it became quite clear to me that I still need to overcome and confront like this fear of perception, because I haven't even posted clips of this podcast anywhere. Like, I posted videos of myself talking from TikTok because I feel like after flexing that muscle and posting random videos of myself, like that just feels like second nature. I no longer have like that inner fear of like a cringe factor. But when it comes to posting these podcast clips, for some reason, I feel a little bit more apprehensive. Not that it's necessarily super vulnerable, and this is a conversation that I would honestly have with a stranger on the street. I feel like to advertise a podcast effectively, you need to be posting the clips online. But I don't do that because I feel like my safety net and security blanket of having my sisters in a clip is just different than when I'm doing it myself. Even though I do firmly believe in the messages I'm spreading, firmly believe in everything that I'm doing, I just have a fear of how it comes across. I don't want to miss out on the bag. I don't want to miss out on being my full self or even giving myself opportunities. I need to overcome that. And if you need to overcome that too, listen up. This is the space for you. And you might think, Sydney, you've already done a podcast like this. Wrong. I have done a podcast about the quarter life crisis, but I didn't dive deeper into this topic. And I think the reason why is because I hadn't really figured out, and I'm still mastering, what do you actually have to do in order to stop worrying about your perception in all aspects of life? Because personally, I feel like the current advice out there right now isn't that helpful. My problem is I don't think it necessarily sticks. One thing I feel like I hear people say is, oh, they don't pay your bills, like stop blocking your blessings, things like that. But the reason I feel like that's hard to actually action on is because oftentimes when you're scared to do something, it's because it goes against the grain or you haven't found success with it yet. So you actually aren't getting your bills paid by whatever you're doing at that point in time. So it's hard to overcome when you aren't getting that monetary kickback while you're going through it. So while there is power in persistence, if you haven't found the success that you're looking for, whatever the desired result is, then sometimes the idea of being motivated by money doesn't always work. And you don't have that clap back of like, oh, I got the bag, when you actually don't have the bag. I just think we need to stop thinking about people's judgments altogether when it comes to overcoming perception and how we're being seen. And that leads me to my next point. I also feel like I hear people saying, oh, they're just jealous of you. They're just a fan if they're talking about you. Your haters are just losers who have nothing better to do with their lives. Yes and no. I can understand that viewpoint, but again, you are slightly giving the power to your supposed haters. I think people overestimate how many people are actually thinking about them, but that's another point and a story for a different day. But I think you are ultimately giving power to your haters by worrying about how they're feeling about you at all. Like, why should we care if they're jealous? And I do think there is duality. Like, somebody could be calling me cringe and a bunch of other people find it cringe, but then there's a whole other group of people who doesn't. But that doesn't mean that it's not cringe for these people. And it also doesn't mean for the group that appreciates it does not appreciate it. So it's like you shouldn't be worried about other people's perceptions, period. So I think this type of advice is just an oversimplification, and it also isn't very actionable because it still holds too much weight and gives too much credit to the other individuals and their thought process and what they think about me, which is what you're trying to avoid altogether. So I want to stop pretending like this generic advice actually solves our fears. Also, the fear of being seen isn't just online, it's in interpersonal relationships as well, which arguably might be even more important. Because I feel like people talk about like the fear perception mainly when it comes to like online visibility, at least maybe as a chronically online person, that's how I see it. So if you're listening, you're thinking, I'm fine, my private Instagram, I'm not worried about what I'm posting, I'm not worried about how I'm perceived online. I think there are ways people mask in their personal relationships that they might not even know. When I think about this, I kind of think about how people hold back their true opinions or surround themselves with people just for the sake of it because of supposed social cues and social hierarchies. If you're listening to this episode, I also want you to see it from that angle too. That if you find yourself dimming your light or you find yourself not being your full self around other people, because you don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to not be loved, you don't want to not have a group or just be accepted, then this episode is also for you because we should be able to exist as our full selves in every space we enter. Like the truth always comes out, whether it's through resentment or burnout or just explosion of emotions. I don't think it's healthy for people to hold themselves back and mask themselves for so long. And then ultimately, you miss out on finding the people who you actually connect with. So stop trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Is that the saying or is it the reverse? You get my point. Be who you are. So overall, the fear of being shown is just a whole life issue. It doesn't exist just online. It more importantly exists in person. We need to be shown as the stars, creative, driven, kind, friendly, funny people that we are. Because you're doing a disservice to yourself and doing a disservice to the world, is my thoughts too. Like, sorry, holding myself back is disservicing plenty of people who want to hear what I have to say. So once you see how people have a fear of being seen in relationships and in person, it kind of shows you why people have a fear of being seen online and in other spaces. I actually saw this play out in real time recently when I went home for Thanksgiving. So I was at an event and a person from my high school was brought up in conversation. And this person from high school has been very active on LinkedIn promoting their business. They have been posting every day and posting things on Instagram, just making themselves known about whatever business they're starting. So the person had made a LinkedIn post talking about their business, and that sparked intense conversation. I'd say there was a group of probably 8 of us, and out of the 8, only one other person agreed with me and kind of shared my perspective. Because in this conversation, they were pretty much bashing the young entrepreneur, saying, I don't even know what their business is. Why do they keep making all these posts? What are they doing? What are they wearing? Because they went to a speaking event and so they had posted about it on LinkedIn. And it was just a lot of criticism, like they were always kind of a weird kid. So I think to cope, a lot of people would say, oh, they were hating on this person because they were jealous of this person. Now, look, I actually don't think the people hating were necessarily jealous of this person. I do think, in a sense, it made them confront, like, oh, this person's going to put them out there. Why am I not going to put myself out there? But at base level, a lot of those people in that group were pretty happy with their lives. And so that's why I don't think the they're just jealous of you rhetoric always holds up because they did think it's cringe. And no matter how many ways you try and flip it, because I said, oh, I think this is kind of cool that they're putting themselves out there. Everyone's like, no, it's weird. I don't even know what the business is. So I don't think using that as a coping mechanism is always effective. So are these people insecure? Maybe, I don't know. When someone is talking about you, that doesn't mean they're obsessed with you. This might have been the first time they thought about this person in 4 or 5 years. So none of that works. I just think you need to realize that when someone is criticizing, that has everything to do with them, nothing to do with you, and you don't need to try and explain it away to yourself or analyze it. Some people are just haters, okay? Like some people are just born to hate, bond over hate. People sleep peacefully at night after hating on you and then go to sleep. Like they aren't even thinking about the situation now. So we don't need to go out of our way to try and understand or rationalize why people do the things they do. We just need to move on and actually be truly unbothered, which is the key. But it's hard to get to that level of enlightenment. And I don't know anyone who's truly mastered it. Normal people aren't intensely tracking your life. Sometimes they are watching though. And that's why I think trying to rationalize or understand the motives behind a hater is just so ineffective. I feel like I always hear influencers talk about the snarkers on those like snark Reddit pages. And to some extent, yes, I do think those snark pages are filled with such negative energy. But to say that everyone on there is a loser or jealous or doesn't have a career actually isn't always true. Because I have learned that a hater can be jealous, or a hater could be successful. A hater could be trying to cope, or a hater literally just snarks for fun. We don't know. So trying to diagnose why someone's doing something does you no good. So we need to get to a place where no one's opinion matters but our own. So I think we need to reframe this and actually understand that our fear of judgment usually has nothing to do with the other people's opinions. Like, I'm not worried about what other people are thinking about me. I'm worried that other people's opinions will validate a negative idea that I have about myself. That's important. Let me restate it. Your fear of judgment has nothing to do with the other person's judgment of you. You're worried that it will reaffirm something negative that you deep down believe about yourself. Because if that wasn't the case, then you wouldn't care what someone else had to say because you knew it wasn't true. So you want to get to a place where your opinion actually reigns supreme. Because I can say that till the cows come home, but until I actually live that, it's just a cute saying that I say to make myself feel better. But how do you actually get to that spot? That's what I think a lot of people are missing, especially when external validation is extremely powerful. I'm gonna read a quote that I actually saw on Reddit, but I thought it well summarized the power of external validation. External validation is like a hard drug. Not only does it give you a lift in the moment, but at the same time, it erodes your resilience. It's easy to believe in yourself when things are good, but when shit goes sideways, your ability to persevere is totally dependent on your ability to validate yourself. And that's the key point. If you aren't able to validate yourself, you become dependent on other people and reliant on their approval. You miss out on so many opportunities when you don't just take the risk or validate whatever you're doing. Because even when you see like trends on social media, there was always like that one person who started something and other people might have thought it was cringe and then they broke through at some point and then everyone jumps on the bandwagon. And it's like, dang, you could have been the person who started it. You know what I mean? Like you want to be the trendsetter, at least in my opinion, instead of being the follower or someone who just like aligns with the trends. And I think that's what separates the good from the great. So what does self-validation actually look like? This is your homework, your 3-step framework to finding personal fulfillment. The first thing is to choose yourself in small moments. It doesn't have to be major decisions, but start trusting your own judgment. Something as simple as not texting a group chat, what do you think about my outfit, but actually wearing whatever you want to wear can make a world of a difference if those little actions build up. As a recovering people pleaser, I think another way you can kind of show up for yourself in micro moments is if someone sends you a restaurant to go to and you actually don't want to go to that restaurant, and instead of saying, yeah, let's do it, you suggest another option. Real simple, but I feel like a lot of people don't do that. I'm not saying be difficult, but you know what I mean. Or someone sends you a TikTok and they share their perspective and you don't necessarily agree with it. Instead of being like, oh, haha, so true, you can share your perspective too. I'm not saying be a contrarian. I'm not saying cause problems and be difficult, but just choose yourself in these small instances. And I think you will start feeling affirmed by yourself and realize it's actually not that scary to put yourself out there and be yourself. And if the other people around you are appreciative of that, you will find the people who are. But you might as well start today instead of waiting. The next thing you can do, I've spoken about in previous episodes, but it's to follow through on small priorities so that you can start to trust yourself. You say you're going to schedule that doctor appointment, do it today. You say you're going to do your laundry today, do it now. You say you're going to make your bed, just do it, because it's these little habits that stack up and help us affirm and trust ourselves. And the last one, which may actually be the hardest, is you got to shock your nervous system into doing things before you're ready. So don't wait to apply the job as you don't think you have all the proper qualifications, or share your true thoughts in conversation before someone else does because you don't want to say something that they disagree with. All of these things will make a difference. It's so funny. I think it's always so painful too when you are in a conversation and you wanted to say something, but you're hesitant or you're waiting, and then someone says it, and then everyone agrees with them. You're like, I could have, I should have just said it. There's nothing worse. And I feel like when you keep holding yourself back, you obviously miss out on opportunities. Not that we need the validation, but you'll realize that there are a lot of people who do actually agree with you, and there are a lot of people who do actually connect with the things you do or the things you say and how you act. And you would rather find those people sooner rather than later, like I just said. And it's not always easy because I feel like there have been points in my life, high school, college, where I had to do a full refresh, okay? Like I had to do an overhaul of the people around me, kept a couple people, the real ones, but I realized I'd be better off with no group than to be in a group that doesn't match me. I feel like I can't be my full self. I have no connection or true affiliation. And when that happens, it does feel lonely. You do kind of feel socially isolated or judged, even though no one's really thinking about you. Maybe that's the problem, is I do want people thinking about me, you know? But at the same time, once you break through the hurdle, and this definitely doesn't happen overnight. It could take years, honestly. I'm not trying to deter you, but it won't happen overnight. But once you break through, you find more genuine, valuable, powerful relationships. I'm not gonna act like affirming yourself isn't a process, and learning to validate yourself isn't going to come without bumps in the road. And you're gonna find times where you question, what am I even doing? Is it worth it? But just know it is. Trying to fit someone else's standard by masking yourself is just never the way to go, because you are wasting your potential and losing out on the true opportunity to thrive. Along the same vein, this might go against the self-help ways or something a therapist would tell you, but I just want to tell you the truth. When I went home for Thanksgiving, something my sisters and I spoke about a lot was the pendulum always swings back. Okay. So, what I mean by that is karma always comes back around. And hiding yourself and not living your truth is never effective, because usually the ones who are trying to keep you small get their due justice at the end of the day. You might not see it, you might not even know how it plays out, but it happens. And sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. So I'm just saying, while we shouldn't be worried about what other people are doing, how they're living their lives, what's going on with them, we should recognize that those who are able to be them full selves usually don't end up with the crises that those who don't. So follow those 3 steps of choosing yourself in micro moments, following through on the promises you keep to yourself, and acting before you're ready. And I think over time, you will start to feel more like yourself in all scenarios, because you've built this self-reliance and self-resilience. I also do want to encourage everyone to form an opinion and act according to that opinion, because I feel like I've done myself dirty by not acting in accordance to my true beliefs off the rip. Why I say this is, I feel like by not acting on my opinions, I've missed out on so many opportunities to actually be the change maker. And for my personality type, I would rather be the leader of my own pack than be forced to follow someone else's. Styles that I thought were cool come into fashion. How I wanted to act becomes the main thing. The people I didn't like got their fair due. And I'll leave it at that. It's like, should have just been me from the beginning, because who knows where I would have been. Water under the bridge. That's why I'm just saying, act in accordance to your opinions from the beginning and keep it pushing and not worry about other people's perceptions. And I think these tips, if actually applied, make a difference, because it will hopefully rewire your brain to solely validate yourself. And hopefully you hit a point where the external validation isn't overriding your own. At the end of the day, your fear of being seen is actually your fear of meeting the parts of yourself that you haven't fully accepted yet. So follow these tips, get therapy if you need it, because there's often childhood trauma or just different circumstances that have led you to see yourself in that light. And I'm no therapist, clearly, but if you want to start reaffirming yourself, follow these steps so that you can start to actually appreciate the things about yourself and actually give credence and value to your own opinions, thoughts, emotions, and just start living in your full truth and light. And you can't build the life that you truly deep down want by hiding from the person that you are. So from here on out, I'm choosing to be seen. I'm going to be seen trying. I'm going to be seen learning, wanting more, sharing my opinions, being vulnerable, and everything in between. Even if it's awkward at times, even if it's imperfect, I am choosing to be me. I feel like that was very dramatic, but it's the truth. And I hope that you do the same because you will truly never be ready. And I'm tired of waiting. And I think that's just the real work of your 20s. Choosing to live freely and be yourself is an active decision I think a lot of people have to make. And I hope today you choose that here and now. So I hope this episode was actually helpful for you guys, especially if you don't want to go to a whole therapy session. This can kickstart your journey to being your true self. I will leave all these steps in the description so that you can follow along and review. And I will catch you next time trying, getting over my fear of being seen, recording right here in my bedroom. That's all for now.